My goal is not to get political, not at all, but listen, hear me out. When I got into the space in 2019, this type of stuff wasn't a factor. We just had a new blockchain focused bill get passed by the House. There's still another step that it has to go through. But the details of this bill, especially if you invest in utility driven cryptos, you're going to want to hear about. All right. So let's just dive right into this. What is it called? The Deploying American Blockchains Act. And according to the brief, the bill would direct the Secretary of Commerce to promote the competitiveness of the United States related to the deployment, use, application, and competitiveness of blockchain technology or other distributed ledger technology and for other purposes. So, right away, this calls to mind gaming applications, payments, obviously through FedNow. But in the original press release, they also talked about another sector of cryptos that we really haven't been mentioning recently, talking about the supply chain. Because alongside the Deploying American Blockchains Act, there is also the Promoting Resiliency of American Supply Chains Act. This is essentially going to allow the digital assets that focus on the supply chain. So we're talking about, especially here in the United States, we're talking about the Morpheus network. We're talking about Hedera, and we're also talking about VeChain. And you can even include XDC in this conversation because they're starting to work the US markets as well. If this bill goes through, that's what's going to allow, is ultimately going to happen, is the supply chain market is what's going to be the first to blow up because now the legal clearance is here. And whenever I tell people that, yeah, Hedera is going to be one of America's blockchains, this is kind of leaning into it. Now, again, like I said, when I first got into the space, this narrative didn't exist. But this calls back to March of last year when the president set forth the executive order for the responsible development of digital assets here in the United States. In that report, they talked about how over the next 12 to 18 months, there would be several reports and bills that would be sent to the White House for educational research purposes so that they have an idea of what blockchain technology can actually do. As a matter of fact, when it came out, I did an episode on it where I highlighted the fact that they highlighted Energy Web Token and one of their biggest applications, which is running in California right now, the Flex Grid. But let's keep reading, guys, because there's more to this. Now, another advantage that we have is that this is bipartisan, which means that both sides of the political spectrum, they support this move, right? But the bipartisan bill would help preserve U.S. leadership in blockchain development, which is sorely needed, stated Kobe Carbine, Vice President of Policy for the Chamber of Digital Commerce. He continues, if you think not, China currently owns 84% of all blockchain patents. It is time for the United States to step it up. Now, when we bring up the patents discussion in the United States, well, I wonder what you mean by step up, because there's a lot of patents here. There's a lot of patents in the States. They just aren't getting the recognition that they deserve. But where do we go from here? All right, what are the next steps? So, the Deploying American Blockchains Act is just one of dozens of crypto-related bills brought forward for approval since last year. However, the future is still uncertain. The bill must now pass a full vote on the House floor, which, if approved, would send the bill to the Senate for further approval. President Biden would get the final say on ratifying once it is through Congress. Now, again, like I said in the beginning, when I first got into this space, 2019, these narratives were not being talked about. However, since 2020, all right, since organizations like the World Economic Forum started promoting the digital transition, and since we've had meetings like Davos in 2022, where they invited American political and financial influencers, leaders, and things like that to this discussion. And then we had government summits all throughout 2021 and 2022 that featured American companies. So this American Blockchains Act, and also notice how all of this is coming after the Ripple decision, right? Which something else popped up to me too. We're going to touch on that in just a second. But I want you to understand how this has been unfolding over the last couple of years. And honestly, there are a list of assets that are in prime position once this paperwork hits his desk. All right. Once this paperwork hits Biden's desk, we have Hedera. Of course, all of their applications, the company itself running in America. But Hedera also joined a collaboration with the State Department. I remember bringing this up not too long ago, but there's a list of tech companies, and essentially they came together earlier this year to ensure American innovation when it comes to the digital transition. Hedera is the only crypto-based company on that list, right next to the State Department, which will be one of the departments that is going to usher in this blockchain bill once it gets signed off on. And then something else to remember too, stellar lumens, ladies and gentlemen. It all ties back to Danielle Dixon sitting in front of Congress. Stellar Lumens is a part of the CFTC's advisory council, right? Having these political positions before the political discussion starts gives them the advantage. And again, like I said, going back to the supply chain discussion, Morpheus Network, Hedera, VeChain, XDC, and I wouldn't be surprised to now start seeing a lot more assets lean into supply chain innovation. But remember who the leaders are, all right? Because they're going to move first. Now, there's been other situations going on recently. I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch the Texas blockchain conference that was held this year. So a few of the presidential candidates here in the United States, they appeared at the conference, and they spoke about their feelings of blockchain, Bitcoin, so forth and so on. A couple of them, they gave the general overview. But there's one gentleman in particular, Mr. Vivek Ramaswamy, who he said something that really stood with me. All right. And I know it's their job. They're politicians. It's their job to do this. But I've never heard this before. It's West Virginia versus the EPA. And how this all boils down, how this all plays out, right? If he has his way, if he becomes president, it would essentially make everything that the SEC has done up until that point irrelevant. Right? Just check this out.
Sometimes to understand what needs to be done within crypto, you need to step outside of crypto to come back in. It's a case called West Virginia versus EPA. It's the most important Supreme Court case of our lifetime. I believe that. And it's going to be the most important one that affects the future of crypto, which held that certain regulations implemented by the EPA were unconstitutional because Congress never gave the EPA that authority. What the Supreme Court said is if that had a $2,000 per person impact, that was such a major question that it had to go through the front door of Congress. Well, I want you to understand that very carefully, because that means that most of the regulations, arguably all of the regulations that are being used to classify cryptocurrencies as securities or otherwise incorrectly, in my view, all the regulations that are being used to sort of decide whether or not there's a particular sector that's within the purview of the SEC itself to regulate are also unconstitutional under that same standard. And so it's with that backdrop that today I am rolling out 3 basic principles that form the backbone of what will be, under my administration, the framework for a cryptocurrency policy. But I believe can form the backbone of what Congress and future presidents take going forward when they approach this sector. The freedom to code, the freedom to financial self-reliance, and the freedom to innovate free from regulatory overreach. I'm going to talk about each of those in turn.
I mean, that's deep. To me, that just makes a whole lot of sense. So, the cogs are turning as we enter the election season here, and I just wanted to make you guys aware that there's always going to be a new narrative popping up in crypto. If you're new, just get used to that. But when those narratives arrive, they are opportunities to make money, honestly. Now, I'm the journalist in the room. So I'm looking for the catalyst that produces the value, right? That ignites the value chain, which then the traders often make moves off of and then exacerbate the pump. But these catalysts like this, they set us up for the long term. And that's what I'm trying to get you guys ready for. So with that, that's all I got for this one. Let me know what you think down in the comments. How much do you think that the political environment is going to affect crypto going forward? Is it going to help in this bull run, or is it going to hinder the bull run? Let me know what you think. With that, though, you know what I want you to do. Have a great day. Have a prosperous day. And remember, if that money is digital, so is the hustle.